He couldn't be bothered to help me, but expected me to drop everything for him. Was this friendship ever real? Hi, Reddit. I, 20F, am in a bit of a weird spot emotionally, and I could really use some outside perspectives on a situation with my best friend, Andrew, 20MEM. We've been super close since we started college. Same program, a lot of the same classes, and we just clicked instantly. But something happened recently that's made me question our friendship. Andrew and I have always been inseparable. We study together, hang out after classes, and text constantly. It's one of those friendships where you can truly be yourself. Awkward jokes, late-night rants, even random existential conversations at 3 a.m. Honestly, he's one of the most important people in my life. That being said, I feel like our friendship has always been a little lopsided. Andrew struggles with school sometimes, not because he isn't smart, but because he procrastinates a lot and gets overwhelmed easily. I, on the other hand, am the type to take meticulous notes, color code everything, and start assignments weeks in advance. Yes, I'm that person. Naturally, I've helped him out a lot. Whenever Andrew gets stuck on a concept or forgets to take notes in class, I'm the first person he comes to. I've stayed up late countless times explaining coursework to him, shared my notes, and even helped him draft essays or prep for exams. I didn't mind because that's what friends do, right? You help each other out. And for the most part, Andrew has been there for me emotionally. He's a great listener, and he always knows how to cheer me up when I'm stressed. A few weeks ago, I was working on a major project for one of our core classes. I'd been putting it together for weeks, but on the morning it was due, my laptop completely died. Wouldn't turn on at all. My heart sank because I had to submit it by noon, or I'd lose a big chunk of my grade. Thankfully, I save all my work in the cloud, so I just needed access to any functioning computer to send it in. Naturally, I thought of Andrew. I called him and explained the situation, asking if I could swing by his place to use his laptop for literally 10 minutes. He said no because he had a Zoom class. Fair enough, but I knew he could have easily joined the class from his phone for a few minutes while I used the laptop. When I asked if I could come by after his class, he said he couldn't because he had a date that afternoon. I was kind of stunned. It wasn't like I was asking to borrow his laptop for hours or do anything complicated. It was a quick, desperate favor, and he shut me down so quickly. I ended up frantically knocking on my neighbor's door, and thankfully, they let me use their computer to submit the project just in time. Crisis averted, but the interaction with Andrew stuck with me. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone has their boundaries, right? Maybe he just didn't want to be inconvenienced, and I shouldn't take it personally. But as the days went by, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I started replaying all the times I'd gone out of my way to help him, staying up late to tutor him, letting him copy my notes when he forgot, even canceling plans once to help him prep for a test he'd forgotten about. I realized that I couldn't think of a single time Andrew had gone out of his way to help me with something practical. Sure, he's been emotionally supportive, but when it comes to tangible, actionable help, the scale feels completely unbalanced. And now I can't stop wondering, is this friendship one-sided? Have I been pouring energy into a relationship where the effort isn't mutual? I'm torn because I don't want to blow this out of proportion. Andrew is a good friend in many ways. He's kind, funny, and he genuinely cares about me. But this situation has made me question whether I've been too available, too accommodating, and whether he's started to take me for granted. I haven't talked to him about it yet because I don't want to seem accusatory or make things awkward between us. But I also feel this growing sense of resentment, and I don't know if I can keep ignoring it. So, Reddit, what do you think? Am I being too sensitive about this one incident? Or is it fair to reevaluate the dynamics of our friendship? Update. After posting here and reading through the comments, thank you, by the way, to everyone who took the time to share their thoughts. I've been doing a lot of reflecting. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just a one-off incident, that maybe Andrew really was just having a bad day or didn't fully understand how stressed I was. But the more I think about it, the more I realize this isn't just about the laptop. It's about the pattern. Every friendship goes through its ups and downs, and it's normal for one person to step up more during certain times. But in this case, I've started noticing how much of our dynamic has revolved around me being there for him. Whether it's school, advice, or even just planning our hangouts, it always feels like I'm the one putting in the effort to keep things running smoothly. And now I'm wondering, if the roles were reversed, Would Andrew do the same for me? A few examples that keep coming to mind. The time I canceled plans for him. About a month ago, Andrew completely blanked on a midterm exam date and freaked out the night before. I had plans to go out with some other friends, but when he called me panicking, I canceled everything to help him study. I spent hours walking him through the material, and he managed to pass. He thanked me profusely at the time, but now that I think about it, I can't imagine him doing the same for me. The never-ending note requests. Andrew rarely takes notes in class. He'll sometimes snap photos of my notes or outright ask me to send him copies. At first, I didn't mind. Why let him struggle when I already have everything written down? But lately, it feels less like a favor and more like a default expectation. He doesn't even ask anymore. He just says, "Can you send me the notes?" without hesitation. The emotional support gap. While Andrew has been emotionally supportive at times, I've started to notice that it's mostly on his terms. If I need to vent or talk about something important, he's usually there, if he's not busy. But if the situation is reversed and he needs to vent, I'm expected to drop everything. It's like his needs take priority and mine are secondary. Part of me feels like I should talk to Andrew about how I've been feeling. But another part of me is scared that it'll just make things awkward. Or worse, that he won't care. What if I bring this up and he brushes it off, or worse, gets defensive? I've seen how he can shut down when he feels criticized, and I don't want to risk losing the friendship altogether. At the same time, I can't keep ignoring this feeling. It's like a little voice in my head is telling me, "This isn't fair. You deserve friends who value you as much as you value them." I'm honestly at a crossroads. I don't want to end the friendship over this, but I also don't want to keep pouring energy into something that doesn't feel equal. I'm starting to think that maybe I've been too accommodating, and that's set a precedent where Andrew assumes I'll always be there for him, while he doesn't feel the same responsibility toward me. So, Reddit, I'm back for advice. Should I talk to Andrew about how I feel? If so, how do I approach it without sounding accusatory or needy? Or am I overthinking this entirely and letting one bad moment overshadow years of good friendship? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hi, Reddit. I'm writing this from the waiting room at the vet clinic. My dog is in surgery right now, and I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I'm scared, heartbroken, and more than anything, I feel so alone. I didn't think things with Andrew could get worse, but they did, and I'm questioning everything about our friendship now. After the laptop incident, I took your advice and decided to talk to Andrew about how I felt. I told him I'd been hurt when he refused to help me, especially since I've always been there for him when he needed me. To his credit, Andrew apologized. He said he'd been really stressed that day, and he admitted he should have handled it better. He even promised to be more considerate in the future. It felt like a genuine apology, and for a moment I thought maybe I'd overreacted. I decided to let it go and move on, hopeful that things might improve between us. But then, a few days later, he called me in a panic, and everything unraveled again. Andrew called me a few hours ago, completely frantic. He'd forgotten about a big test he had the next day, not the first time this has happened, and he begged me to come over and help him study. Despite my lingering doubts about our friendship, I agreed. I told myself it was a chance to rebuild the trust and balance in our relationship, and I genuinely wanted to help him. I started getting ready to head over when I noticed something strange about my dog. Normally, he's super energetic and always follows me to the door when I leave, but yesterday, he just lay there, barely moving. He hadn't touched his food or water all day, and it hit me that he'd been sleeping an unusual amount. My heart sank. Something was wrong. I called Andrew back and explained the situation, telling him I couldn't come over because I needed to take my dog to the vet immediately. I expected him to be understanding, but instead, he got angry. He told me I was making a big deal out of nothing, and that my dog was probably just tired. He kept saying that this test was really important and that I should just come over anyway, insisting that my dog would be fine. When I refused and told him I wasn't going to leave my dog in this state, he got even more frustrated. "You're seriously ditching me for a dog?" he said. I told him I didn't have time to argue and hung up. At the clinic, the vets quickly realized something was seriously wrong. After a few tests, they told me my dog needed emergency surgery. I was devastated. They didn't have time to explain everything in detail, but it was clear that if I hadn't brought him in when I did, he might not have made it. I've spent the last several hours sitting in the waiting room, terrified and hoping for good news. My dog is more than just a pet to me. He's my family. The thought of losing him is unbearable. In the middle of all this, I decided to try calling Andrew again. I wasn't looking for help. I just needed someone to talk to, someone to remind me that everything might be okay. But when I called, the call didn't go through. That's when I realized he'd blocked my number. I'm sitting here now, crying, waiting for the vet to come out and tell me if my dog is going to be okay. And all I can think about is how I've spent so much time and energy on a friendship that clearly doesn't mean as much to Andrew as it does to me. I don't know where to go from here. I feel like I've hit a breaking point. This isn't just about Andrew refusing to help me or getting mad when I couldn't help him. It's about the fact that, in my time of need, he completely abandoned me. I think I already know the answer, but I need to ask, is this friendship worth saving? Or is it time to walk away for good? Thank you for listening, Reddit. Your support has meant the world to me, and I'll update again once I know more about my dog. Final update. Hi, everyone. It's been a few months since everything happened, and I wanted to give one last update to wrap up this whole situation. A lot has happened since my dog's surgery, my falling out with Andrew, and the aftermath. First, some good news. My dog is fully recovered now. The vets discovered he had an intestinal blockage caused by something he'd eaten, still not sure what it was, but they suspect it might have been part of a toy he chewed up. The doctors removed the blockage just in time, and after a few weeks of rest, he was back to his energetic, happy self. I can't even put into words how relieved I am. That little guy means the world to me, and I'm so grateful I trusted my instincts that night. The day after the surgery, Andrew called me out of the blue. He sounded upbeat and told me he'd taken his test. According to him, he didn't do great, but at least he wouldn't fail. He seemed proud of himself for pulling through. Hearing him talk so casually, like nothing had happened, made my blood boil. I told him exactly what had gone down the previous day: the emergency surgery, the long hours of waiting, and how terrified I'd been. I also told him how hurt I was that, instead of supporting me, he blocked me when I needed him most. He apologized and said he didn't realize it was that serious. Then he tried to justify his behavior, saying he's just impulsive and tends to overreact in the moment. But by then, I was too disappointed and drained to care. I told him, calmly but firmly, that our friendship was over. I said I couldn't keep being there for someone who couldn't even show basic empathy when I was going through something so serious. He tried to argue, but I didn't let him. I hung up, blocked his number, and decided I was done. For the next couple of days, Andrew tried to reach out to me through mutual friends, emails, and even new phone numbers. At first, he apologized over and over, promising to change and asking for another chance. When I didn't respond, his tone shifted. He became defensive, saying I was overreacting and acting like I was the one being unfair. At school, he started making passive-aggressive comments whenever we crossed paths. Things like, "Guess I'm not a good enough friend for some people," or "Must be nice to have time for dogs and not humans." I ignored him. It was hard, but I knew engaging would only make things worse. Eventually, he backed off. Fast forward to finals. I focused on my studies and stayed away from any drama. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Andrew was struggling. Apparently, he procrastinated as usual and didn't prepare for several of his exams. He ended up failing a few and has to retake the year. When I heard the news, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me was sad for him. Despite everything, I did care about Andrew at one point, and it's hard to watch someone you used to be close to self-destruct. But another part of me knew this was a pattern of behavior he'd never tried to fix. And honestly, it's not my responsibility to save him anymore. Losing Andrew as a friend hurt more than I expected. For years, I thought of him as someone I could count on, someone who would always have my back. Realizing that wasn't true was painful, but it also taught me an important lesson. Friendship is about mutual respect, effort, and care. I spent so much time pouring into a relationship that didn't pour back into me. Letting go of Andrew has given me the space to focus on the people who truly value me, and on myself. To anyone reading this who's struggling with a toxic or one-sided friendship, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to put yourself first. Letting go is hard, but sometimes it's the healthiest thing you can do. As for Andrew, I hope he learns from this and starts taking responsibility for his actions. I hope he grows into someone who treats the people in his life with the kindness and consideration they deserve. But that's his journey, not mine. Thank you all for supporting me through this. Your advice, encouragement, and kindness have meant so much. I'm closing this chapter and moving forward with my life, grateful for the lessons I've learned and the people and pets who truly matter.